You know, the story of Jeffrey Epstein, it's so much more than just another scandal. It's this really chilling look at how immense wealth and powerful connections can, well, hide the most horrific crimes right out in the open. We're talking about the very highest levels of society. So let's get into it and figure out how this whole thing finally unraveled.
And yeah, this really isn't just about one guy. We're talking about a massive, sprawling network, a web of influence so incredibly powerful that, for years, it honestly seemed like he was completely untouchable, totally beyond the reach of the law. So that's the big question here, right? We're going to dig into who Epstein actually was, what his crimes really involved, and, maybe most importantly, how the system failed so badly to stop him the first time and then, years later, tried to bring this whole network to justice.
All right, first step. To really get a grip on this whole saga, you got to start with the man himself. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? Because honestly, his background is almost as mysterious as his crimes.
I mean, his career path is just wild. He starts out in 1974 as a math and physics teacher at a super elite private school, the Dalton School. And get this, he didn't even have a college degree. He eventually gets fired, but somehow he uses a connection from that school to land a job on Wall Street at Bear Stearns. Fast forward to 1988, and boom, he's running his own super secretive firm, J. Epstein & Co., managing money only for the ultra-rich.
And this quote right here from Donald Trump back in 2002 really gives you a sense of the circles he was in. Long before any major legal trouble, his reputation was already pretty well known among the elite. He was seen as this charismatic, maybe a little controversial, but definitely an accepted member of a very, very exclusive club.
Okay, but behind that whole facade of the mysterious, jet-setting financier, something way darker was going on. A really sophisticated criminal operation was taking shape.
And this wasn't just random acts. No, this was a system, a literal pyramid scheme of abuse. Epstein and his associates, especially Ghislaine Maxwell, they targeted young, vulnerable girls. They'd lure them in with promises of money for massages, and then the abuse would begin. But the most twisted part? They would then coerce and manipulate those victims into recruiting their own friends and peers.
And all of this abuse, it was happening at these incredible properties that just screamed wealth and power. We're talking about his mansion in Palm Beach, a massive townhouse in Manhattan, his private jet, which got that infamous Lolita Express nickname, and of course, his private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Little St. James.
So this whole operation went on for years and years. But when law enforcement finally started to close in, the story takes this really bizarre turn. Okay, so here's the timeline. It starts in 2005, when Palm Beach police get a report from a parent about her 14-year-old daughter. The case just explodes from there. By 2006, the FBI is involved, and they've identified dozens of potential victims. A huge federal indictment is being drawn up. It looks like it's all coming down. And then it just stops. Everything just grinds to a halt.
Just to put this in perspective, the federal charges he was facing could have easily meant life in prison. But what did he actually get? Just 13 months. And not even in a federal prison, but a county jail. And even then, he was on a work release program where he could leave the jail for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It's just unbelievable.
So how on earth did that happen? Well, it was all because of a secret deal, a non-prosecution agreement, or NPA. It was negotiated by the U.S. Attorney at the time, Alex Acosta. And this deal was wild. It didn't just protect Epstein from federal charges. It also gave immunity to any of his potential co-conspirators. So with the stroke of a pen, the entire FBI investigation was just shut down.
Now this is where it gets even stranger. Years later, when Acosta was being questioned about why he'd cut such a lenient deal, he reportedly said he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and that he should leave it alone. Now, to be clear, there's no public evidence to back that up, but that single quote, man, it just fueled years and years of speculation that some really powerful forces were protecting Epstein.
So after that 2008 deal, Epstein pretty much went back to his life of luxury. But the story never completely went away, thanks to some incredible investigative journalism that kept the pressure on. And then, in 2019, everything came to a head.
On July 6, 2019, federal prosecutors in New York arrest him again. New sex trafficking charges. And this time it felt like, okay, this is it. Justice is finally coming. There's going to be no sweetheart deal this time. But then, a little over a month later, after what looked like a previous suicide attempt, Epstein was found dead in his cell.
The official cause of death, according to the New York City Medical Examiner, was suicide by hanging. And just like that, the criminal case against Jeffrey Epstein was officially closed.
But that official ruling was met with, let's just say, a lot of skepticism. And it was fueled by this whole series of absolutely stunning security failures at the federal jail. You had both guards on his unit falling asleep and then falsifying the logs to cover it up. Key surveillance cameras supposedly malfunctioned. His cellmate was moved out right before his death. I mean, these are all documented issues that left this huge cloud of really troubling questions just hanging over the official story.
Okay, so with Epstein dead, the spotlight immediately shifted to his network, all the people who enabled him. And that spotlight landed squarely on his longtime partner, Ghislaine Maxwell.
And in 2022, Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. For so many of the victims, this was the first real, tangible piece of justice they had ever seen. In court documents and lawsuits, Maxwell was often called the highest-ranking employee of the whole trafficking operation. Her conviction on multiple counts, including sex trafficking of a minor, really cemented her central, crucial role in finding and grooming Epstein's victims.
Then, you might remember this, in early 2024, a ton of documents from an old civil lawsuit against Maxwell were unsealed, and it created this huge media firestorm. Now, lots of prominent people were named in those documents. We're talking former presidents, royalty, you name it. But it is so important to understand the context here. For the most part, the documents just confirm social connections we already knew about, or things like flight logs. Just because someone's name is in those files, it is not an accusation of a crime. It's definitely not proof of wrongdoing.
So, here's where we stand today. Epstein is dead. His main accomplice is in prison. But the full story and all of the fallout from it, it is far, far from over.
You know, the reason this whole saga still resonates so much is because it's about way more than just one man's horrific crimes. It's become this powerful, really disturbing symbol of a justice system that seems to have two tiers, one for the rich and powerful and one for everybody else. It just laid bare this massive institutional failure to protect vulnerable people and raised these huge, deep questions about what and who is still out there, hidden from view.
So yeah, the official case against Jeffrey Epstein is closed. But the trial of the system that enabled him, the reckoning with the powerful people, the institutions and the culture of impunity that let this go on for decades, you have to wonder, is that trial just getting started?